I don't know the purpose of the of this call. What you want to know, what you want to say, how I can be of any help. I don't know. So please go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Brice. So everybody, let's explain a bit. So Brice is going to present himself because some people don't really know him, and then after, just let's ask question just about, I guess, anything. You can ask like many questions to Brice. He knows a lot in chiropractic. He's been like 42 years approximately. He's been in the profession. So it's
in the field. In the field.
In the field. So,
well, okay.
So
very quickly, because it's not very important. I graduated from Palmer in '78. Then I moved to France. I worked in Le Vésinet since started in I think in 79. No, 78 till 87. I sold the office to my very, very, very dear friend, Serge Sich, who's now in Barcelona. And I moved to Italy on the request of Jean-Pierre Mersman. Initially, I was supposed to leave France to go to California, to go to San Diego with a friend of mine. And in the meantime, I didn't get my green card yet. And Jean-Pierre had this project in Milan to open a clinic in Milan, and he asked me to come and started the clinic. I knew Jean-Pierre because we met in different seminars, in every seminar that were existing in Europe at that time, and Pete as well, Pete Serro. And he said, please come and do that, because we were also working. It was a time when Jean-Pierre was building up all the work and the studies on the TMJ and the relationship with the spine. And the dentist who was working with Jean-Pierre at that time was a French professor called Louis Namani. He was in Paris and Saint-Germain. And I've met Louis, and I was working with Louis Namani, and Jean-Pierre was bringing patients from Italy. And this is how we build up the relationship. And Jean-Pierre asked me to come to Milan to work. But as everything in Italy, there's always a delay in everything, in every project. So when I arrived at the end of October, the clinic was not ready in Milan. So he said, if you want to stay here for a while in Como and work with me, you're more than welcome. And Como is a beautiful city. You got the lake, you got everything. And I appreciated most Jean-Pierre. He was very knowledgeable, and he was already a leader in the profession. And so we started working, and by the end of May, the clinic in Milan was supposed to be opened. And Jean-Pierre said, what do you want to do? You want to go to Milan or you want to stay in Como? And at that time, I was already seeing 35, 40 patients a day. So I didn't feel like starting over in Milan. And I love Como. I love practicing with Jean-Pierre, because at that time, we every Tuesday night and every Thursday night, 2 nights a week, we had a room with a dentist. And we got 3 dentists every Tuesday and every Thursday, where we brought the patients who got a problem from the TMJ and the occlusion in relationship with the spine or any ailment they could have. And there was beautiful evenings, because we would start at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, and we would end up by 2 o'clock in the morning. And so after the work, we would go for a pizza, go to bed at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, get up at 6 and go back to the clinic for 7:30 in the morning. And we've done that for 2 or 3 years. It was magic time. We learned a lot. It created a real friendship. This is when we discovered one evening the relationship between the glasses and the spine and the gait. We had a very famous TV showman in Italy who came to the clinic. It was on a Thursday night, I remember that. And he was the last patient. I think it came at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock in the evening. And the guy had a passion. He loved to ski, but he got pain in his legs, and he couldn't ski anymore, and he couldn't remain in feet during all the shows that he was presenting. And at one moment, we had studied Carl Ferreri and the limbic system. And I looked at Jean-Pierre and I said, what about the glasses he's wearing? And we had also the memory that Dijon was saying that when the glasses are heavy on the nose, this is changing the physiology of the sphenobasilar motion. So something could happen there. So we checked, and he had a metallic frame on his in his glasses, and without those glasses, the muscles, the anterior tibialis was strong, but with the glasses, the anterior tibialis was weak. So he got a tension in the calf muscles, he got a tension in the legs, and the way he was walking, the anterior tibialis was not working. So you got a whole process and the whole muscular chain that was reacting in a negative way. So this is how we find out that glasses, when they were metallic as a frame, could influence negatively the gait. So that was the time when we were looking for new things, discovering new things, and grabbing a lot of knowledge. And we had George Goodhart coming to the clinic. He would spend a few days with us. We had Carl Ferreri, who came as well. And we were, I would say, a kind of prostitutes in the in the profession, because living in Como on the lake, it was easy to temptation to this chiropractors coming from the States. You can imagine that. So we were inviting those guys to stay for 1 week in Como, and hotel was paid, food was paid, and they had to work with us the whole day and spend the evening with us. We would have 100 questions, and we would learn a lot from them. So the whole thing was a very magical period, I would say. And this is how we build up a lot of things. This also when, I think it was in 89 or 90, 89 probably, we met Ted Morter. We met Ted Morter through Jean Bellaval, who was a very famous chiropractor in France at that time, and Jean-Pierre had worked with him before he moved to Italy. And Jean Bellaval was taking care of me when I was a student. And so he called us one day and he said, you have to invite this guy. He's incredible. He does miracles. It's just amazing. So as Jean-Pierre always had big ideas, he said, let's invite the guy and let's organize a seminar of this technique. So said, done. We went to the first seminar, best seminar in Europe. I think it was in June sometimes. Yeah, sometime in June. And on the French Riviera. And we look at the guy and look working. We said, either this guy is a thief or he's a genius. So to find out if the guy was a thief or a genius, naturally, he was invited to Como. And he spent, I think he spent about 6-7 days with us, where we could follow him, work with him. And this is when Ted Morter realized that asking questions to the feet. He used to ask all these patients in English because his patients were American. But he was asking the question manually in English, and the Italian patient, the body would respond yes and no. So he realized that it was not the word, but the intent that he had in his question that was received by the subconscious of the patient. And the body will respond negatively or positively, so he could get the right information. That was quite fascinating for Morter as well. So that was this period that was absolutely lovely, because we were taking many seminars, we were inviting many people, and we work as a team, and it was something not impossible to forget. What else? Well, we had some experience in the and the soccer teams. Jean-Pierre started with the Milan, and Juventus asked Milan if they had a chiropractor for them, and Jean-Pierre very nicely said, well, Brice is going to do it. He's the one who can do it. And so Juventus called me, and at that time, my life was beautiful. I was working, I was playing golf, I was studying, I had no problem. And I said, no. And Jean-Pierre called me, he said, you can't say no. I said, yes, I can. I have a quality of life, why should I bother? And finally, I went there, and I realized it could be an experience to study a lot on sports medicine and to really apply kinesiology as Goodhart was saying it. And then we can go back later on the applied kinesiology as it is today and as it was at the beginning. And so I started the this adventure with Juventus, and I took Peter Stockling with me and Christian Beckel, and we were working there on Wednesday, and I was going on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So my clinic went down quite a bit because I was a lot with the team, but I loved it, and I did it from 1988 till 2006. The first year in 1988, Juventus in 1988, before we came in, they've had 75 injuries between muscular injuries and joint injuries and spinal injuries. After 1 year, we went down to 20. For the rest of the time we were working with them, we were between 10 and 15 injuries a year. Normally, an injury, a muscular injury, it's about 30 to 40 days to put a player again on the field. So he can play really 90 minutes. We could bring the time of recovery down to 15 to 20 days. And we did it with applied kinesiology, and I created a protocol in TBM to work on the muscle injury and how to recuperate. And we've done that. The guy got in the quadriceps, he got a 6 centimeters injury. Okay, in the myotendinous upper part of the quad. We worked on him for 2 days. He went back to do an ecography, and it was reduced to 1 centimeter in 48 hours. That was quite fascinating. So this is the kind of experience we've had, and it was done. But enough of talking about me. Let's go for if anybody has questions, and let's start the meeting in an interesting way.
That was a lot of information.
So, no, not much.
Well, I guess that to make a little resume for everybody who don't really know Brice, you've been out of the Palmer Chiropractic College in 1978.
Yeah.
You've been president of the AK in Italy, president of AK.
Have I been president? I think I've been president 1 year, and the rest of the time I was vice president because the president was Pete Sitter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you talked about many techniques like AK, best, TBN, matrix. How can you define those techniques? Because there is some first years, second years that don't really know about that.
Well, okay, you have so many techniques in chiropractic. Okay, but some are basic. All right. The first of all, for every student, the most important technique is to know the categories in SOT and in AK, which are about the same thing anyway. But you have to know the categories, because if you know your categories in AK and SOT, you're going to solve 75% of all the structural problems. Okay? Then you can add the TMJ, and you can add the extremities, and then you can add also the eyesight and the glasses. And then about 90%, you'll solve the problem. Plus, an essential technique in applied kinesiology is the dural torsion correction. I would say this is the basic, okay? And understand the difference between sympathetic and parasympathetic as in Gonstead. Keep the concept in Gonstead to adjust the sympathetic and not the parasympathetic at the same time. Because you will create too much trouble in the body to assist, okay? So if you take the sacrum and the pelvic, you can go to atlas, occiput, and axis, and the jaw. But do not fool around with the dorsals. Okay, this is the Gonstead concept. And I believe it is very true. And if you look in SOT, you're dealing with the category 1, your category 2, the category 3. The category 3, to me, is, okay, for those who haven't taken SOT, category 3 is a relationship between the lumbar and the sacrum and pelvic. It's the lumbar that is at stake and the disc. To me, the category 3 is a lack of adaptation of the human body to a category 2. The category 2 is the pelvic instability to the SI joint. And if you look at it, when you take a PI and an AS, and mainly the PI, it's when the person is kind of locked in the gait, okay? When it moves forward, the leg moves forward, okay? And George Goodall, but mainly David Leaf, did an excellent work in his book about all the phases of the gait and the muscle inhibition and muscle excitation, and an excellent referral. I encourage every student to look at David Leaf's work. David Leaf is the spiritual son of George Goodhart. He is the one who's really teaching the beautiful AK in its pure essence. Okay, and I encourage to go for, if David is coming back to Europe, every student should go and follow his class, because I don't think he's going to do it for a long time, because now years are turning also, so he's getting old, and he got a big problem in his foot, and he has a problem to stay at long public speaking. So if you cannot follow his class, at least try to buy the book, because the book is a pure reference to the real applied kinesiology. Kinesiology today has changed. And I remember I was with Pete. We were in Austria, and we were sitting in the back of the room with George. George was between Pete and I, and he was listening to some Austrian and German, they were MDs and chiropractors presenting applied kinesiology research mainly on chemical. And George was nodding with his head like this. And at one moment we looked at George and we said, George, what's wrong with it? He said, this is not applied kinesiology anymore. And George wrote a beautiful book called Back to the Basic, where he's explaining all the relationship with the dura and the gait. And this is a must to read to every student and every young doctors. It's a marvel of work, really. So applied kinesiology, as I said, is an essential technique. Why? Because I'm reading very often on Le Coin Chiro on Facebook questions about young doctors about certain structural problems, and they're going into some kinesiotherapy approach with Feldenkrais, with a lot of things like this. Applied kinesiology, when it's done properly, considering the human being in the gait, is creating miracles on the shoulder, on the hip, on the foot, on the knee, on the spine. And this is a must to be known for every chiropractor today, okay? Also because many, many osteopaths are following applied kinesiology classes today. And they are really studying it. And they are very, and I must admit that they're good at it. You see, I don't like to talk about osteopaths, but osteopaths and chiropractors are very different. For one thing, they don't have philosophy. The philosophy is essential. You were asking me about techniques. I can explain and I can tell you how I see those techniques. But if the technique is not done with the philosophy, with the chiropractic philosophy, it's just, it's not working. It's not working as it should. Never forget that those techniques have been created by chiropractors who were living perfectly the chiropractic philosophy. I have a few booklets from D. Jarnett back in 46, 47, 49. And when those people like D. Jarnett says, okay, visualize the correction of the point, visualize the thing as it is already happening. We're talking about 46, 47. So those guys got not only the technique, the structural thing, but they had a mental attitude. George Goodhart, one day we were at Villa d'Est, and a good friend of mine came to say hi. And when she left, George looked at me and she said, what a beautiful aura she has. I looked at George and said, George, are you looking at the aura? He said, all the time. Every one of my patients, I look at the aura. I said, why? He said, because we have a lot of information in the aura. So this is the difference, okay, between a technical doctor and a chiropractor. It resides in the philosophy, not only theoretically, but living the philosophy. You're not a chiropractor 8 or 9 hours a day. You are a chiropractor 24/7 with the concept of universal intelligence and innate intelligence. You can call it alpha and omega, whatever you want to call it, but it's there. And this is through this that those techniques have a much more bigger impact onto the human physiology and onto you as well. For one reason, it gives you humility. You will not get result and you will not put stars on your shoulders because you're good, because you don't cure people. You take care of people. But the healing is done by the body. The healing is done by the field. The healing is done by universal intelligence, which is perfect, which is organized, balanced, harmonious. That's it. So every time you get a good result, do not think you've been the healer. You've been the door of an information coming from the field, or the force, as you want to say in Star Wars, okay, to the body. It's reconnecting a body to the field. And the body heals itself. So you're going to have techniques like SOT, you're going to have techniques like applied kinesiology, which goes deeper into the muscle work, the ligament works, reflex points. And I encourage every student and young doctors to know applied kinesiology. It has been miraculous for us at Sanrocco from the very beginning. And still today, we are using applied kinesiology. In George Goodhart's spirit. Now you have some very good doctors in applied kinesiology. And I was watching, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, Jean-Pierre organized a webinar on Zoom about the shoulder. And there was Joe Schaeffer. And Joe Schaeffer is a very, very knowledgeable doctor in applied kinesiology. And he's doing a lot of neurology approach in his applied kinesiology. He has a technique called interlink, which is fabulous. And to answer the questions on Le Coin Chiro about rehab, please do not do rehab. Get rid of the interference in the nervous system. And all the tools you may use are in chiropractic. First of all, in applied kinesiology, the last work from Joe Schaeffer on interlink, this also. You know, Joe Schaeffer is criticized, and I've been fighting him myself. I recognize it because he's teaching applied kinesiology to osteopaths. But thinking, this guy dedicated hundreds of hours of studies, okay? And he's organizing a seminar on that, and he has 3 chiropractors coming. So he's pissed off because all the good thing and all the goodwill that he has is not listened by his own profession. And he has another profession like osteopaths who's willing to learn. Why not? I would never teach to osteopaths, but I understand why he does it. He does it because he loves what he does. And he wants people to know. And he's very disappointed by chiropractors. And I understand that. I understand that fully. The name is Joe Schaeffer, Schaeffer. He's in Italy. He's an excellent chiropractor and a very nice guy, and he's always ready for teaching. So please, guys, if you want to avoid that Joe is teaching to osteopaths, organize a seminar of applied kinesiology with him, and you'll be all delighted by what he does. He's a very knowledgeable guy. Okay, yeah, he can come to BCC. He'll be delighted to do that. And it's frustrating, you know, to study, okay? To develop new things that are working really, because we use this interlink at the clinic. I don't use it the way he does because I don't like to hurt people. So I'm doing it in matrix, and it's a different thing, but it works the same. Anyway, the concept is the same. Everything resides in the concept, okay, in life. So going back, you have SOT, you have applied kinesiology. This is this has been my way of working. I started the Gonstead toggle recoil, SOT, applied kinesiology, Logan basic. Then I moved to, we were, as I said before, Carl Ferreri, Ted Morter, NOT, NET. What else? I didn't study BGI, but I know a girl, Ana Salares, who does it. Wonderful. I've been reading a little bit, and it's a wonderful technique. I took network seminars at the beginning. I was with Pete, and Jean-Pierre organized the seminar of network as well in Como with Epstein, Donald Epstein. The technique is fantastic. It's work to fit. Every technique works beautifully. It's the way you practice the technique that makes the difference. As I said before, you practice a technique, you practice it with your heart, with passion, and the result will be wonderful. I have 2 good friends in Torino, Marc Jublain and Patricia Belig, and they're wonderful doing network technique. And they're teaching as well, they're giving classes. and they're number one. They're fantastic. And I have a full respect for them because they do it with passion. They do it with their heart. And this is why people are having those results and feel so much better. The key word is passion. The key word is attitude. That's the way. So then I moved to TBM. I was in 98. And I've been following Viktor Frank for 10 years. And I've had the privilege and the honor that he took me as a spiritual son. So I could call him anytime I wanted. And every time I would ask a question about a case that I had, he would answer me the same way anyway. He would say, "Did you go back to the basic?" And I was the basic that I had to go back. So, and it was a wonderful man. He, then I will go back to those masters because this is one thing. He probably changed my life. He changed the way I was in the clinic, and he changed my way of looking at things. At that time, TBM got 4 levels. And the 4th level was taught in Bruges twice a year in his apartment, and we were max 9 students. And he would teach us how to build a virtual lab, bring entities, see the aura, communicate between us, and it was magic. 3 days like this was better than LSD and marijuana together. That was fantastic. I mean, we were flying high, really, and learning a lot, not in technique, but about ourselves. That was fantastic. And one day, this is why he's my master. One day, I burst out crying. And I was crying like a baby. And he said, "Why are you crying?" I said, "Because I'm ashamed. Because I love this technique. I feel this technique. I live this technique. I understand it's not a technique, it's a world, it's a universe. But I'm afraid of doing only this in my practice because I'm afraid of losing my patients." And I was so frustrated. I was crying like a baby. And instead of telling me something nice, he chuckled, laughed at me in front of everybody. And he said, "Why don't you dare?" And this "why don't you dare" was like an earthquake in my life, a tsunami. He broke all my concept, everything in 1 second. So I went back to Como on Monday morning and I got rid of the tie. I said, enough. And I started practicing TBM 90% of my visit. And after 6 months, I've had an increase of 25% of first visits. Why? Very simple. I was sincere. I was doing what I loved. I was passionate. And I was giving my patient the sensation that I loved what I was doing. And I was honest with myself doing what I was doing. Key word. And he changed my life for that. Beside the fact that he taught me how to see things that normally you don't see, okay? But that's different. He said one day at the end of, I think it was the second time we were doing level 4, he asked each of us what was our sensation about those 3 days. And I said, it's like I was in front of 2 wooden doors that were 100 meters high, and I pushed, and I entered in a world where everything was beautiful, full of potential, and I had to work and to walk through that world. And the door shut down behind my back. and I knew I would never go back to where I was. And this is a long walk and a long trip for the rest of my life to learn and to get closer and closer and closer to what is reality. And this is what I learned in TBM. It was a magical thing. And then I went to Matrix, and Richard Bartlett is also a Viktor Frankl spiritual son. So I called Victor. I was coming back from the second clinic in Italy, and I called Victor. I said, Vic, I want to do Matrix Energetics. Is it a class for me? Richard Bartlett. He said, oh yeah, he's a mad guy, but I love him. He's my spiritual son. I will call him and tell him that you come. So when I took the first seminar in Matrix Energetics, and Richard came to me and he said, Vic called me. He said, you were coming. He said, take care of that guy. So that's it. So going back to those masters, all of them, we've had the chance to meet them, to see the way they were working. But the most important thing I noticed was not their technique, because you could look at the books, read the books, study the books. But it was what they had inside. That passion, this humility, the uniqueness of who they were. They had to give a message. They were connected to the field 24/7. They were transmitting something that you were willing to be taken care of by them. Sid Williams, I've met Sid Williams twice. This man, and every student should go to YouTube and see Sid Williams talking to his students at Life College. You will see the dimension of this man and the philosophy of this man. You may or not agree with the fact of only adjusting the upper cervical. That's not the point. The point is the aura of this man, the faith that this man has or had in an intelligence and universal intelligence and in chiropractic. All those masters, they had in common that passion, that sparkle inside of their heart that you could see in their eyes. They had their field, electromagnetic field of this man was huge. You could feel their presence when they were coming into a room. They were masters, just like the Jedi in Star Wars. They were really masters, really. Enough. Is there any question? Because I've been talking too much.
So we had a question from Victor. Could you explain more about TBM and why you like it? Why it's worked better than other techniques for you?
It is not better than any other technique. It is a technique that I feel. It is a technique I fit. I sense it. I live it. It has another dimension. When applied kinesiology and SOT are working in a 3D, TBM is a connection to the field. If a small introduction is, every vertebra has a different shape. No vertebra is similar to another one. It's slightly different. That means if you tap on the vertebra, the frequency, the resonance will be different. So for every organ, you have a sequence of vertebrae. And the sequence of vertebrae is like a code of access to the original blueprint that created the body. When the two cells met and they started to develop, there's a magnetic field around. And in this magnetic field, are all the information to bring to the cells to build up, to make different systems, to end up as a body. There's a quantic theory it's a quantic aspect of TBM. The body exists before it is conceived on the 3 dimension. It exists already. And this is this information that is sent to the baby that is growing in the belly of the mother. Now, this field is the invisible body, it's the real body. It's perfect. It's the image of universal intelligence. The visible body we have is the one that gets sick. So what we're doing through the vertebrae and the sequence of vertebrae is a code of access to the original organ that will send back the original information so the organ in the visible body have a chance to heal. Then you can play between organs, relationship between organs, or relationship between systems. So it's TBM was born from an evolution of applied kinesiology. When you do applied kinesiology, the structural aspect is perfect. The emotional and mental aspect to me, is lacking a lot of things. But it was built for a structural aspect. And the chemical aspect of applied kinesiology was good for minerals and vitamins and different substances that could help the body, the muscles and the body to recuperate. But if you go to the systems, if you go to the organs, it's not that strong. And TBM is giving the key to rebuild the physiology of every organ and every system in the body. That's the point. Why do I like TBM? One of the reasons is that. And I like the spirit and the philosophy that resides in TBM. You can do TBM on a baby, you can do TBM on a patient who has a cancer and full of metastasis, no problem. You do it, and it works the same. And you can use TBM also on patients who are under chemotherapy or immunotherapy when they have a cancer. And this protocol is to get rid of the side effects of the chemo. So people you will never tell a patient who has a cancer not to do chemotherapy. This is not ethical, and you're not good enough to take care of a patient with such a disease. But you can help a lot by getting rid of all the side effects of the therapies they receive, and they will get less tired. The energy will go up, and most of the patients that I follow under chemotherapy with TBM and matrix energetics now, they have very, very good results. And even the oncologists are quite amazed to see how their patients are reacting without too many side effects. I had a lady, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago. She came to the clinic because even if with the COVID-19, we remained open on Tuesday morning and Thursday morning for the emergencies. And this lady came about 1.5 years ago, sent by one of my patients, saying, "Are you going to help me? I'm a terminal cancer. I'm full of metastasis, and they don't give much to live." I said, "All I can do is probably see what we can do for you." And so I've been treating her. She could go to chemotherapy, and after every chemotherapy, she would come to the office. I would get rid of the side effect of the chemotherapy. And she came 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, and she said, "Look, doc, this is the last MRI, and this is the last scanner. I have no more metastases. They're all gone. And the tumor has shrunk so little they can do a surgery on me." And the oncologist said, "I'm safe." You know what happened? I was crying with her. I was crying of joy. It was so beautiful to share that moment with this patient. It's just like every patient who feels better, whether it is a disc hernia, whether it is a cancer, whether it is a headache for 20 years. When you do that, it gives you joy. Do not take credit for the results the patient has in your office. You're not doing it. You're just a door. The body is doing it. The field is doing it. So be joyful for what's happening to your patient and share the joy with your patient for that. And
yeah.
The answer by Tibin was satisfying? Or you want more explanation?
I don't know. Victor, you okay?
Yes, merci.
So we had a first question from Harold. What would you think about publishing a paper on your time with Juventus for maybe help chiropractic in sport?
Why should I do it?
As you feel, but could you think it would be like interesting for this period of time?
Well, not really. It was interesting for me because I had to use applied kinesiology and TBM in a very quick way, because when you have a player that is the day before an important game and you have to fix it, you have to learn how to work fast. But it's, you know, if you, as I said before, if you do the right applied kinesiology, you get the results. So I would say that, okay, the difference between high-level athletes and the common patient you have in the office is like the common patient is like the mechanic of a Renault. And if you go to a high-level athlete, that you got a Formula One. And this is very precise. You cannot leave one detail, because this one detail that you leave may create a problem to that player, and he's not able to play, or he might have an injury. So this is the difference: is that you have to work more into detail, and this is how also, it's probably a very important thing, right? Because I've been explaining the techniques, but then the question some of you might have is, how do you know how to use the technique, or that specific technique? Pete and I, we've been the Madonna of all the airports in Europe for 12 years, because we were taking every seminars and having those people in the clinic. And we developed so many techniques that after a while, we had that amount of techniques and how to use it and when to use it. And I had the disc injury, and I had to stay in bed for 3 weeks. And I said, I have to change my way of practicing. And it was in, well, I think it was 91. Yeah, probably 91, probably. And I decided to find out I had 3 weeks to do. So I decided to create a protocol of priority in the body, how to read what the body could tell me and where to go and what to do. And so I found the points on the body for the structural, for the chemical, for the physiology, for immunity, for hologram, and emotional, and also the polarity and the meridian system. And everything was based on one thing, is those things were in an interference to the normal way of walking, because the human being is the only animal on earth to walk 4 limbs in the vertical position. We are